Hi, friends. You're listening to Season 1, Episode 3 of the Cowgirl Confessions Podcast. Thank you for being here, and if you're new, I'm so glad you're tuning in. This episode, we'll talk to Missy Bonds from Saginaw, Texas. She's a third-generation rancher and a woman that I am so proud to call my friend. We talk about just her dream to grow up and follow in her father's footsteps, some business strategies, as well as her new TV opportunity. So stay tuned. I know you're going to love this episode. Hey, y'all, and welcome. You're listening to the Cowgirl Confessions Podcast. I'm your host, Dakota Dawn Johnson, small-town cowgirl with Southern roots, blazing a trail as a Midwest ranch wife, mama, and businesswoman. The mission of Cowgirl Confessions is to share the wonderfully wild and Western life stories of cowgirls from all walks of life. We'll talk about the highs, the lows, and everything in between when it comes to navigating careers, cowboys, kids, and cattle. Legendary cowgirl Dale Evans said it best. Cowgirl is a pioneer spirit, a special brand of American courage. The cowgirl faces life head-on, lives by her own lights, and makes no excuses. Cowgirls take stands. They speak up. They defend the things they hold dear. A cowgirl might be a rancher, a barrel racer, a bull rider, or an actress. But she's just as likely to be a checker at the local Winn-Dixie, a full-time mother, a banker, an attorney, or an astronaut. If you're into wet saddle blankets, talks with God, buckets full of laughter, and the life lessons learned in the process, kick off your boots and settle in. I pray these stories encourage, empower, and give you just the leg up you need. Here's to embracing the cowgirl state of mind, no matter how wild and Western life may get along the way. Missy, thank you so much for being on the show this morning.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, let's start with just a little bit of background on where you're from and kind of how you grew up with your involvement in just the agriculture and Western industries.
So my name is Missy Bonds. I grew up on a ranch just north of Fort Worth. I was born in the Fort Worth area, grew up here, and grew up riding horses, grew up riding and working alongside with my family. While most of my friends growing up through high school and elementary school and middle school, while most of my friends went to spring break and went to South Padre and went on all of these beach vacations or went skiing, here I am going to Belcherville, Texas, branding calves. So, you know, I've grown up in the ranching industry. And when I was 8 years old, I came home and I told my dad one day that said, when I grow up, I want to be a rancher like you. And he said, well, when you do, you need to go get a business degree from a university anywhere you want to go, and then go through the TCU ranch management program. And that's what I did. I went and got a agricultural business degree from Texas Tech University, and went through the TCU ranch management program, and then ended up back home and working alongside my father. So
I can't imagine, I mean, now that I'm, a parent myself, just what an amazing feeling that must have been for your dad, for you just at the ripe old age of 8 years old to come up with so much clarity. And then for him to just commend him for not being like, oh, this is something maybe she's going to grow out of, or like wanting to encourage you to do something different, because it would have been really easy for him to do that, I think. And the fact that he was like, no, if this is what you want to do, here's how you do it. And so that set the course, the trajectory of your life pretty much, it sounds like.
And then for me to remember it from that young of an age, and me to have that much of a vision to continue it for my life goals for the rest of my life. So, and I'm very fortunate that I do believe my father is one of the smartest men in this industry, and I get to work alongside him every day and learn from him still every day. Now, do we butt heads, and is he the bane of my existence sometimes? Yes. I mean, there are times when my job, Daddy, is not to change the paper in your printer. No. But to learn how he does business and how he thinks about this industry has been life changing.
Well, a couple of things you said there, Missy. One, I think any of us that have ever worked with family in any capacity, not even on as large of a scale as what you're doing, but family's family, and there's pros and cons. But at the end of the day, you love each other. And like you said, it's an opportunity that not everybody gets to have. And so it's great that y'all are getting to work together. And but I would love to know a little bit more about your dad and maybe how the whole kind of operation got started. And because he just seems like such a wealth of knowledge for so many people in the industry and outside of the industry.
So my grandfather was an oil man. He was an oil wildcatter in East Texas. And my grandfather bought our ranch in 1933 from the Hicks estate. And this was our original headquarters, what we consider our headquarters ranch, just north of Saginaw. And this is where I grew up. And it's where my dad grew up. This is where I grew up. And then my dad went to TCU. Well, my grandfather passed away when my father was 2 years old, and the ranch foreman raised my father. And he was born in 1891, and Bert Burnett's first cousin, Bert Burnett was the owner of the 4 Sixes.
Okay.
And so my dad got a lot of insight into a lot of things that a lot of people didn't get to see from his history side of things. And so he and Big Pete is what is the foreman's name, what they called him. Big Pete, it was Big Pete and Little Pete, or Big Pete and Repeat.
Yeah.
But Big Pete taught my dad everything he knew about ranching and being a cowboy and a cattleman. And my dad, when he was 16 years old, borrowed his first money to be able to buy his first set of cows on his own. And he went to college, went to TCU, went through the TCU ranch management program himself, and came out of it. He and my parents got married in 76. And then I'm not going to tell you when they had me because that would show my age, but but they were happy having this at that time. They were happy having the 200 head cow herd here just north of Fort Worth. But then times changed, things got a little tight, as all cattle cycles do. And my dad went out with his a bottle of whiskey and a pistol or a rifle or shotgun, went to do some thinking, drinking, hunting, is what he likes to say. And went and decided that he got to thinking, he said, most businesses out there don't look at profit per head. They look at a return on equity. So he changed his whole outlook on how he looks at his returns from profit per head to return on equity. And from there, we have totally been able to expand our operation. And from doing that, we're, we now have operations but from doing that, we look at the returns and being able to get annualized returns. We get annualized returns that Warren Buffett would kill for. And we now have ranches and run cattle in 26 counties in Texas and 13 different states. And we used to run cattle in Mexico and Canada as well.
Wow. That such an incredible story, just of, like you said, the history of ranching. And not to get sidetracked, because there's so much I want to ask you about what all you just said, but whenever I first met you, Missy, and guys, I've had the opportunity to go to the Bonds Ranch, and it was truly just kind of it was such a neat experience for me. It's the first time I'd ever gotten to go be part of like a real live branding deal. And whenever I say that, like, there's lots of us out here that rodeo, and then you've got people that show cattle and stuff, but like, even though it's all kind of under the same umbrella, I feel like for people outside of our industries, there is so much more that goes on, on the ranching side. And I mean, I showed up this, Alabama cowgirl that had never been a part of anything like that, but you handed me an ear tagger, deal, and I went to work, and you just made me feel so welcome, like there, because I feel like a lot of people, and I was even a little bit intimidated, even though I knew, I mean, I'd heard you were salt of the earth from our mutual friends, and they were like, yeah, come on, you're going to love it. And I did. I don't know if that's common in the ranching community, but I feel like just from what you said about Big Pete and then your dad and how he kind of took him under, your whole ranch, like you guys embody that, and it doesn't matter who it is. I mean, you just made me feel right at home, and we've been friends ever since.
We have. We love teaching around here. I don't know if I'm necessarily a very good teacher, but I think we sometimes learn best by getting thrown into the fire, and how else are you going to be learned by, unless you get handed a set of ear taggers and get told, here, this is the way you do it now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was like, all right, let's go. And I'm like, man, she's trusted me to put these tags. For me, it was a big deal. It's like, wow, like, and I'm sure for you, you're like, how hard can that be? Just put a tag in their ear. But it was for me, like, I was like, wow, she just met me, but she thinks enough of me that she's gonna let me be a part of this and not babysit me. Make sure I got a tool and say, let her go, girl.
Hey, those tags, I can tell you, those tags are a pretty important piece of our branding, because those tags, we are part of a program called the non-hormone treated cattle program that enables our calves, the meat from our calves, to be exported into the European Union. For some of our ranches, we have them qualified for those. We do that by using electronic identification, and then we correlate that electronic identification to, and link that correlated electronic tag to a visual tag, and those electronic tags can get pretty expensive. So making sure that they're put in correctly and they don't lose them, that's a pretty important job. So
yeah, I still feel very important, and now I'm glad I didn't know all of that when I was doing it, because I would have probably been super nervous, more nervous than I already was about doing it. But with you saying that, two things that I want to make sure we touch on is, one, when your dad went and did his drinking and thinking, and he made that business decision shift to look at, to go from basing it per head to his equity, the return on his equity, and then also everything you were just talking about, so much technology surrounding what you're doing, and just overall, what can you tell us about your business approach at Bonds Cattle Ranch, like how you've maintained to grow, but then also like stick to your gut and stay with that business plan that, even though maybe it's different from some other people in the industry, it's what you believe in, it works, and how you kind of bring all that together and it works like it does.
Well, we look at numbers. We are very diligent hedgers, and saying hedging, there is Chicago Mercantile Exchange has a commodities trading floor where they trade cattle futures, and where you can hedge your risk and lock in cattle prices. And so we use that to lock in prices. So if we go in and we like, I've got a sale coming up here in about an hour. I know where the futures board is right now. I have an idea of what those cattle what it will cost to run them on wheat, what it'll cost to carry them on wheat. Like, and when I say that, it means like the cost to care, the cost for mineral, cost for hay, all of any kind of cost for drugs, to doctor them when they get sick, anything like that, any kind of death loss, anything. So I know those are not, should not be a highly changing factor. So I have an idea of what I can sell them for because of where the board is and the difference of and historically what I can sell that animal from off of that board. I know historically what I can do all that for on wheat, and what they should death rates and death loss rates and all of that historically. So I should know then what I can pay for that animal to be able to make the profit, the return on equity that I'm looking for. So I can run a budget for each truckload lot of cattle that I am offered or I look at, to be able to see if those animals will work for me. And if they don't, there's no emotion to it. It takes 100% of emotion out of it, because the numbers don't lie. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't, and we don't do it. If it works, we do it, and I turn around, and as soon as I do it, I call my commodity broker and I hedge my cattle. There's zero risk in there, or let's say not zero, there's minimal risk. So we do all of this with minimal risk.
Wow.
And you can't grow, or it's hard to grow with high risk.
Yeah, new to the cattle industry side of it. I married into it, and so I've been in learning and constantly learning all of this for probably, I'm on like a 5-year plan at this point. And but 3 years ago is when it got super real, and I financially became invested in all that when we got married, and everything you're saying, that's how, my husband, he's really numbers oriented, and I'm very numbers oriented. Like you said, take 100% emotion out of it with my job in sales whenever I'm talking to customers. And whether it's cattle, you guys, or you're talking about, hey, you sell more plaid shirts versus print snaps, when you're in business, I think it's so important. And I hate to say it, women, we're just emotional creatures, but it's really easy as women, I think, for us to try to want to keep everybody happy and make sure things. Sometimes we let emotion override our decisions when we need to be making them based on numbers and not emotion. Because at the end of the day, we're all trying to make money in business. Otherwise, it's a hobby. It's not a business.
Correct.
And so what Missy's, sharing here, even though what she's sharing is about cattle, I want y'all to take away that this can be applied, this mindset, and kind of these equations, if you will. It's all numbers, it's all math. And if it doesn't add up on paper and you need to pivot, you need to regroup and think about doing something differently to where it is affording you the opportunity to have the lifestyle you want. Because I feel like that's why we're all doing this.
Yeah, take out cattle and add widgets.
Yeah. Yeah.
My dad's one of my dad's favorite sayings is he and Warren Buffett are in the same business. We're in the money allocation business. Warren Buffett, though, allocates money into businesses and stocks and bonds, and my dad allocates money into cattle and cattle.
Yeah, that, man, such a great just picture to paint right there, visual for everybody. So Missy, you went through the ranch management program, and then what did that whole process look like as far as like stepping into, did you work somewhere else? Did you come right on at Bonds, or what did all that look like? And honestly, if there's anything you could kind of share with us in that for somebody that maybe is wanting to go back and work for their family, and some things that you really recommend or you might do different if you had to do it over again.
Well, I can say any person out there looking at going back to their family ranching operation or staying in ranching in general needs to go through the TCU Ranch Management Program. It is a 9-month program, and that teaches you how to look at ranching as a business and not just a way of life. Before this whole coronavirus thing took out, kind of messed everything up, they would go on 5 field trips. This year they're not able to go on the field trips, but they're working very diligently trying to do different things to make up for that. But you pretty much are in a 9-month intensive course where you almost write 3 theses. If you look at it in an educational form, you write 3 theses in a 9-month time period. But you write 3 business plans and 3 business models for a ranch, and how you would run that ranch if you were the manager. And they teach you how to then do that. They first off step out where it's their where they control everything. Then you have your own place, and then they do it where it's all improved forages. So they're trying to make you look at and where you can go back to any place. Their goal is to be able to drop you any place in the world, and you may not know what the grasses are or what everything's like there, but you have the ability to know where to find the information and how to find the information on how to be able to manage that ranch properly.
That, man, it sounds like an incredible program. I'm over here going, man, it'd be good for me just to go back, and it saved my husband a lot of headaches having to read stuff to me 3 and 4 times probably, but might have to put that on my bucket list. Lot,
and don't let the TCU and having a private school label there with it be a deterrent. There is a lot of scholarship opportunities available with this program. They do afford a lot of scholarships for the students going through.
That's great to know.
Have a lot of alumni and have a huge alumni backing. I think 20% of the TCU alumni, 20% of the Texas and Southwestern Cattle Raisers Association directors are alumni of the program.
Man, it's so good to see something like that. just kind of come back full circle, if you will, whenever I feel like when people feel like they've been invested in. So let's take you, for example, you know that course changed your life. It really opened your eyes. It was had positive impact on you. And so, I have to imagine that you're heavily involved with them still. And then just the way, I guess what I'm getting at is like, you have a heart for sharing the story of agriculture and cattle. And you guys, I mean, you can hop on Google and just type in Bonds Ranch, Texas, and you'll see lots of videos of Missy, so many different platforms of her, sharing her thoughts on what's going on in the cattle industry or just the background of their family on ranch. And what, do you have any advice, Missy, on people? Because I feel like we have so many people in the agriculture industry that have this knowledge, that have a heart for wanting to see it continue to grow, but maybe they're not confident enough to step out and do what you're doing and share their story. So do you have any ideas or just kind of encouragement for people that maybe are sitting on the fence there that could help them take that next step to share their story, even if they think, oh, well, I'm just some rancher, I don't have a story?
Everybody has a story. And everybody's story needs to be heard. Yeah, everybody has a history, and everybody's story is interesting. How you've lived your life, and how you've run your business, and how your ranch has come into play, and how your family has been around for generations, that has meaning. And I know personally, I learn something from every person I encounter. So don't be afraid to be out there. Don't be afraid to. The best thing I can say is get informed. Educate yourself, though. Mm-hmm. Make sure you ask questions, and get informed about issues, and learn about topics, and then your history is part of what's going on, and what's happening within these issues that are happening in mainstream today. And you can intertwine your history within the mainstream issues. And whether controversial or not controversial, whether it can be about weather or mandatory labeling, or importing or exporting, whatever that may be, your story can be a part of that. Just you can learn how to make that story a part of it.
Yeah, and I think it's crucial, whether it's the cattle industry, rodeo industry, whatever. You said something there, and I'm not going to say it exactly the same way, but how our stories, everybody's story has something that's going to relate to people a little bit differently, kind of like a nugget, if you will, that maybe somebody mainstream is going to connect with better than the next. And so that's just really important, like bridging that gap and being educated to where when you get the opportunity to share something with a new audience in that mainstream area, that it's shedding a positive light on our industry. And that's what's going to continue to help us grow, and just, grow the awareness of people. And that brings me to something that I really enjoyed. One of the video clips I saw of you on, YouTube, talking about beef and labeling and its origin. And so can you just dive into that a little bit, Missy, and kind of give us a lesson on what all this really means that we're hearing about beef and its labeling at the grocery store, and all of that, and how it really impacts ranchers like yourself?
So beef exports account for, I'm trying to remember here. So I'm trying to remember because I can't, I'm not 100% sure. So I'm going to go on the short side of things here. I think if I remember right, it adds $250 a head, dollar value to an animal on exports alone. And these products that we're exporting most of the time are products that you and I don't want to eat. Like, I don't know about you, but I don't know how to cook a tongue, and I really don't necessarily want to eat a tongue or a kidney or a liver. But you know who does? People in Egypt.
Right.
When BSE when BSE when the restrictions from BSE back in 2001, well, when exports were cut off in 2001 because of BSE, it wrecked the beef market and the cattle market. Well, when exports started coming back online and Egypt allowed exports to come back, the tongue alone added $6 value to the carcass. I mean, that's crazy. $6 for a tongue.
Yeah.
So we're trying to make, they're trying to get the best value for the animal. Well, the United States also does not produce enough ground meat to supply the demand for the United States. So the United States will import lean trimmings to mix with what we call our 50-50 trimmings, which are when they're, you know, when they're cutting up and making the briskets, cutting the brisket from this piece and cutting the ribs from this piece and cutting the rib from the loin. They'll get little slivers here. When they're doing all of that, they get all these little pieces that have fat and meat on them. Well, so when they do that, they'll get the lean trimmings and mix it with those 50-50 trimmings and grind them together. And that's how you get most of the time it's your cheaper valued ground meat. And most of that will go into actually food service. So most of actually what you're seeing in your grocery stores will all have been have come from a USDA United States slaughter facility, packing facility. But some of the ground meat, most of the time it's just ground meat that we are importing. We also will do, I think the other thing that we also will import some of is because of the demand for Mexican food. Mexican food has gotten so popular in the United States that fajitas.
Yeah. So
we don't have enough flank steaks and skirt steaks. So we actually get some of those from Ireland.
Okay.
But all of those are actually going into food service. So when you're going through the grocery store, the average person is not looking at where the product is coming from. They are looking to see what it looks like. They're looking at the quality. They are knowing that it is inspected and it's safe, because U.S. food supply is safe. And knowing normally, unless you're just, it's random weird thing, it is coming from the United States.
Okay, that's I mean, eye-opening for me, even because we're in the feeder calf side, but we're not dealing as much, you know. I mean, the beef, I'm sure, like you guys, I mean, we go have a beef butchered, so I'm not necessarily going and buying beef at the grocery store. We just have it done. And so I don't want to say I'm disconnected from it, because obviously, like, I went to the grocery store a lot and bought beef prior to being where I'm at now, but it's just knowing what the consumer is actually thinking most of the time, and like you said, kind of looking at what the meat looks like, and then if we can just kind of have the general understanding that most of this is coming actually from the U.S. is what you're saying.
Right.
Okay.
Most everything, if it has a USDA inspected label, you know, a quality label on it,
Okay.
it's gone through a U.S. packing facility.
Okay.
And so what we would like is, or what I personally would like to see, is a voluntary label, not something that the government mandates. Because personally, I don't like the government telling me what I can and can't do, and I don't like the government telling me how I have to market things.
Sure. Sure.
If I'm going to do something, I want to be paid for it.
Right.
If there are people out there that, yes, look for a product of the USA on their label, and if they do, that is perfectly fine. There are products out there that meet their needs, and but most of the time they will have to pay a little extra for that, because you have to do a little extra work. There's extra data having to be collected for that product. But for a straight commodity product, for the average person that does not look for that and does not care about that, don't see where having to force that upon them is necessary.
Yeah, I really I relate to what you said, just as far as if you're going to have to do it, it shouldn't be something that's government mandated. You should have the ability to choose, because you're going to be the one spending the money
Right.
on doing it and running your business. And it gets kind of sticky there. I mean, in my opinion, if we start letting this thing be government mandated, then it's kind of like, where does it stop? You know, where do you draw that
Correct.
line? And so it's pretty slippery slope. But thank you for sharing that, you know, just with us and everything. You had mentioned to me recently that you had the opportunity to kind of pre-record a really neat episode that's going to be coming out, and I'd just really like to hear more about that and where people could tune in.
Well, it may actually have been before the podcast comes out, but they're actually going to be rebroadcasting it several times, I believe, and
Okay.
It'll be on YouTube. It will broadcast on September 8th at 7 o'clock. There's a TV show called RanchHer. It's a show called, they are highlighting women in ranching, and just showing the influence that women have in the ranching industry, and how it's not necessarily just the man's world that people really think it is, that there really are these a bunch of women out there doing all of this alongside their fathers, husbands, alone, on their own, with their daughters.
Yeah.
And it's a really I think it's going to be a really inspiring series. And
can't
I
wait to
am
watch
the
it.
premiere episode.
Oh my goodness, Missy, that's so exciting. Because I was sitting here going, how have I missed this? How have I not known about it? But you're the premiere, so.
I am the premiere. It's a brand new show. It is a sister show to a show that has been a big success on RFD channel called RanchHer. It'll be hosted by a woman named Kirby Schmore, who is a good friend of mine. And she, when they approached her with doing the show, she said, I know who I want to be for the first episode. And she approached me and I said, okay, where do you want to start? So
yeah, that
so
I can imagine like being in Kirby's position and just being like jackpot. You know, when you just, that's how I felt whenever I thinking about starting this podcast, and you know, you being one of the first ones I wanted to have on the show, because you do have such an interesting background. Just, I should say, it's interesting, but there's so much history and depth, and you're so business savvy, Missy, and just a powerhouse, if you will. I mean, that's what when you were describing what that show's going to be about and the women in the industry, I just think of all these women powerhouses, and but also women that, like, you know, just have this persona about them that they don't have to be the loudest person in the room to get everybody's attention and to hold their place at the table. And that's a skill set. It's a beautiful skill set, and it's needed not only in the ranching community, in the cattle industry and rodeo. I mean, we need more of that everywhere. And one of the things you mentioned earlier, congratulations on the show. I can't wait to watch it.
Well, thank you. I'm very excited about it. Thank you.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome, no doubt. Guys, make sure you check in to watching RanchHer, and I'll make sure I'm putting the show notes where you can find all of that. I wanted to ask you a couple of things just about your operation before we wrap this up. So you mentioned that you guys have cattle, multiple states. And so from a management side, what does that look like as far as you hiring somebody to kind of be over that operation, your eyes and ears and feet on the ground, and how you kind of what you look for in a person when you're hiring them for that, and how you manage it from afar?
Well, we deal a lot with how we deal with that is we deal with the people. Mm-hmm. We get to know that person. And this is not, yes, this is our business. This is this Bonds Ranch. We run this as a business, but we are very unique, and we are the Bonds family as well. Both of my sisters are also involved in our operation as well. My mother is involved, my father involved. So we are very much family oriented here. When somebody gets to work for us, becomes a part of the ranch, they become part of the family. And so in doing that, there may be a lot of kind of oversight and kind of watching it first, just to make sure how things are going to work and how you're going to do. First come on, or because a lot of times when we don't go searching out for a place, they come searching for us, and the opportunity comes to somebody else, and they come to us because they can't do it on their own. And so we then go in with that person for whatever opportunity that may be, whether it may be a cow-calf opportunity, a stocker opportunity, a feeding opportunity, whatever that is. So, but we all become part of the family, and we look for the long term. We don't like doing these deals where we don't look to try to do something where it's going to break somebody and going to put them out of business. We want everybody to we want them to get rich, because if we're making them rich, it's making us rich.
Yep.
So, that's kind of how it all, we kind of have to watch over it for the first couple of years and kind of baby it, but then after that, it takes on legs of its own.
Yeah, it sounds like kind of the key ingredient there with that approach is that you're partnering with somebody that's already invested. They're invested and
Yes.
They want to see it succeed. It's not just a hired hand showing up and wanting to check in and check out and collect a paycheck.
Correct.
So that's a huge, it sounds like the most important part of kind of how y'all have done that and been able to see success. And last question I've got for you, Missy, is really, can you just take us through what I say a normal week would look like, but kind of day to day for you? Because I know we rescheduled this podcast a couple of times because of rain, and then you were weaning and then some stuff on my end, but kind of, do you work from home? Do you go into an office? What's your day to day look like?
Oh, I don't know. It depends.
Picture. Yeah.
I can say most days I am in an office. Because you don't have to be a rancher and have to be out with the cows every day. Most of the time, your business happens in the office. It happens talking on the phone, doing business deals, doing transactions. But there are days where, I'm up at 4:00 in the morning to, Tuesday, I will be up 4:00 in the morning heading out to, well, Tuesday will be a good example because it's going to be a crazy day. Tuesday, I will be up about 4 o'clock, come out, saddle my horse. We'll drive about an hour and a half to go out. We will pin a set of cows and calves. We'll pull the calves off, ship them back to Fort Worth. We'll palpate the cows. Then we will eat lunch, drive back to Fort Worth. I will then spend about 2 hours in the office. I will try to, then I'll have to put on a clean shirt and brush my hair at least, and maybe slap on a little makeup. And then I'll go do live air interviews for the RanchHer premiere.
Atta girl.
And then I'll come home and get ready for people to show up at my house to actually watch the episode. Then, as soon as it's over, I'm going to tell everybody, hey, thanks. Great seeing y'all. Enjoyed seeing everybody. Now get out of my house because I got to go to sleep, because I got to get up at 4:30 the next morning, because I'll have to process all the calves that came in
the day before.
So the day before. So we'll process all the calves, and we'll get finished processing about the time that the sun's coming up, and we'll have everything weighed. And we're normally finished processing by about 8 o'clock in the morning. Mm-hmm. And then I will come spend a full day in the office.
Wow. Yeah. There's so many moving parts, in order to make it all happen like you guys do. And I'm just so excited for just the world to get a a snippet, a little bit more of your story through this RanchHer episode. I can't wait to tune in and watch it. And Missy, can you share with everybody just where they can go to kind of find out more about Bonds Ranch, yourself, or just some good places to learn facts about the cattle industry in general?
I would say to check out the TC Ranch Management website for some facts about the ranching industry, or even facts about the TC Ranch Management program. Then there's also the Texas and Southwestern Cattle Raisers Association website, and the National Cattlemen's Beef Association website. You can also go to those to learn more about things that are going on within our industry, within things that are affecting ranchers right now and the beef industry. And then for Bonds Ranch, I would say you can go to our Facebook page and our Instagram page. We try to keep up with those, and if you can reach out on either one of those and be able to get a hold of myself or my sister through both of those.
Awesome. Well, Missy, thank you again. Really enjoyed getting to catch up with you this morning. And I know that this episode is really going to just shed some light on what all women are doing for the cattle industry like yourself. So thank you again.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for spending your time with me on the Cowgirl Confessions podcast. I'm so glad y'all stopped by. If you could take a moment to share this episode and tag us on social media, I'd be happier than a cowgirl in a sea of buy one, get one vintage turquoise. Subscribe to make sure you don't miss an episode. New episodes will be released bi-monthly. Please leave us a review if you feel so led by going to iTunes. Your feedback will really help us breed the idea of grabbing life by the horns with a cowgirl state of mind into women across the globe. Some that may have never even had the privilege to throw their leg over a horse, but could most certainly use the cowgirl state of mind while navigating life. Thanks again, y'all. Until next time, keep pursuing your dreams with that all-go and no-woe mentality. Remember, you're writing a story that's worth saddling up for, sister.